today's topic, we will explore Chapter 10, entitled Performance Management, focusing on uses and characteristics of performance appraisal, establishment of performance standard, methods of performance appraisal, and appraisal interviews. Strong performance appraisals are the backbone of effective performance management. So let's start with a couple of definitions. Performance management refers to the processes that ensures the organization connects mission with the work of employees. Performance appraisals, on the other hand, also known as performance reviews, guides the process of determining how well employees do their jobs relative to a standard and communicate that information to them. Performance appraisals ensure effective outcomes of performance management are realized. It is typically done once a year. Now, what are the uses of performance appraisal? Evaluating your employees. Companies can use performance appraisals to evaluate employees on how they fared against the goals and objectives set by their managers. It is useful for setting expectations for the upcoming year. It can be used to recognize the extraordinary efforts of certain employees while pointing out how they can improve. Developing staff skills. Businesses can use performance appraisals as the basis for career development plans. This includes the identification of skills and training that employees would need to progress up the ranks in a corporate hierarchy. For example, if an employee needs to work on his time management skills, the employer could organize a training session for all employees who need help in organizational skills. Another, providing performance recognition. Companies may also use performance appraisals to recognize outstanding employees. For example, employees with a consistent rating into top 5% of their peer group might be placed in a management mentoring program and receive pay rises. Giving employee feedback. Appraisals can also be useful for gathering employee feedback that helps human resources and senior management with career planning. For example, companies sometimes ask employees if they are satisfied with career development plans and what additional training they might need. Talking about performance appraisals, there are listed 6 characteristics of performance appraisal. First, the system must be bias-free. The evaluator must be objective and the methods of appraisals must be fair and equitable. The atmosphere must be that of confidence and trust. It must be relevant. It should only measure behavior that are relevant to the successful job performance and not any other personal traits. It should be acceptable to all. The performance standards as well as the appraisal methods should be developed by joint participation and joint collaboration. Another characteristic of performance appraisal is that it should be reliable, dependable, stable, and consistent. High reliability is essential for correct decision-making and validation studies. It should be sufficiently scientific so that if an employee is evaluated by 2 different evaluators, then the result should be significantly the same. It must be able to objectively differentiate between a good employee and an ineffective one. Rating an employee average does not adequately indicate the degree of effectiveness. So, the technique must be sufficiently sensitive to pick up the difference between an effective and an ineffective employee. Finally, it must be practical, sound, clear, and unambiguous, so that all parties concerned understand all its implications. Performance management and performance appraisal are two terms used for evaluating employee performance.
A performance standard is a management-approved expression of the performance thresholds, requirements, expectations that must be met to appraise at a particular level of performance. A fully successful standard must be established for each critical element and included in the employee performance plan. Additionally, if other levels of performance are used by the appraisal program, writing standards for those levels and including them in the performance plan is not required but is encouraged so that employees will know what they have to do meet standards higher than fully successful. General measures. Performance standards should be objective, measurable, realistic, and stated clearly in writing or otherwise recorded. Also, standards should be written in terms of specific measures that will be needed to appraise performance. These are the general measures to measure employee performance include the following. First, quality address how well the work is performed and or how accurate or how effective the final product is. Quality refers also accuracy, appearance, usefulness, and effectiveness. Quality addresses also how work is produced. A quantity measure can be expressed as an error rate, such as number or percentage of errors allowable for a unit of work, or as a general result to be achieved. Timeliness addresses how quickly, when, or by what date the work is produced. The most common error made in setting timeliness standards is to allow no margin of error. Lastly, cost effectiveness addresses dollar savings to the government or working within a budget. Standards that address cost effectiveness standards may include such aspects of performance as maintaining or reducing unit cost, reducing the time it takes to produce a product or service, or reducing waste. These are the following questions in deciding the general measures in performance. Is quality important? Does the stakeholder or customer care how well the work is done? Is quantity important? Does the stakeholder or customer care how many are produced? Is it important that the element be accomplished by a certain time or date? Is it important that the element be done within certain cost limits? Specific measure that will be included in the standard. And to develop specific measure for each element, you must determine how would you measure the quantity, quality, timeliness, and cost effectiveness of the element. Writing standard. And once you've established the specific measures that apply to the elements, you can begin to write the standards, and before writing the fully successful standard, you must know the number of levels that your appraisal program uses to appraise elements. And take note, how you write the fully successful standard depends on the number of levels your program uses to appraise elements. There are 3 elements. The first element is guidance and technical assistance. No more than 3 to 8% per quarter as determined by the supervisor. At least 60 to 80% of customers agree that the employee is willing to assist and that the information they receive is helpful. Employee initially responds to customers' requests for assistance within at least 1 to 8 working hours from receipt of request. Second element is team participation. The supervisor and team members are satisfied that the incumbent usually assures an appropriate amount of work or responsibility for group projects, typically demonstrate a willingness to assure other responsibilities as needed, and generally share knowledge of office procedure or equipment with other members of the team. Last element is analytical results and specifications. The research manager is routinely satisfied that the method measures that appropriate variable, the results are relevant, the method is scientifically sound, there is a well-written protocol, the method is accurate, precise, reproducible, fast, and cost-effective.
Methods of performance appraisal. Employee performance appraisal. The employee performance appraisal process is crucial for organization to boost employee productivity and improve their outcomes. Not only because it is the determining factor in an employee's wage rise and promotion, but also because it can evaluate an employee skills, strength, and shortcoming accurately. There are 6 modern performance appraisals methods. First, management by objectives or NBO. Second, 360-degree feedback. Third, assessment-centric method. Fourth, behaviorally anchored rating scales. 5. Psychological appraisals. 6. Human resource cost accounting method. And then, first, management by objectives or NVO. Second, 360-degree feedback is a multi-dimensional performance appraisal method that evaluates an employee using feedback collected from the employee's circle of influence, namely managers, peers, customers, and direct reports. In 360-degree feedback, there are 5 integral components. First, self-appraisals, managerial reviews, peer reviews, subordinates appraising managers, customers or the client reviews. First, self-appraisals offers employee a chance to look back at their performance and understand their strengths and weaknesses. Second, managerial reviews. Performance reviews done by managers are a part of the traditional and basic form of appraisal. Third, peer reviews. As hierarchies move out of the organization pictures, co-workers get a unique perspective on the employee's performance, making them the most relevant evaluator. Fourth, subordinate appraising manager. This upward appraisal component of the 360 feedback is a delicate and significant step. Fifth, customer or client reviews. The client component of this phase can include either internal customers, such as user of product within the organization, or external customers who are not a part of the company but interact with this specific employee on a regular basis. Third of modern performance appraisal is assessment-centric method. The concept of assessment-centric was introduced way back in 1930s by the German army, but it has been polished and tailored to fit today's environment, like pre-assessment, during assessment, post-assessment. Pre-assessment, online objectives of review, find competencies and reviewers. During the assessment, explain the purpose and policies, use competencies exercise matrix. post-assessment, collect feedback from reviewers, evaluate the validity of result, share the feedbacks with employees. Fourth, behaviorally anchored rating scales. Behaviorally anchored rating scales or BARs bring out both qualitative and quantitative benefits in a performance appraisal process. BARs compare employees' performance with a specific behavioral example that are anchored to a numerical rating. The first step in BARs creation is generation for critical incidents that depict typical workplace behavior. The next step is editing the critical incidents into a common format and removing any redundancy. After normalization, the critical instances are randomized and accused for effectiveness. Remaining critical incidents are used to create BARs and evaluate employee performance. Fifth, psychological appraisals. This method assesses the employee potential for future performance rather than the past one. It focuses on the employee's emotional, intellectual, and motivational and other person characteristics affecting his or her performance. Advantages of psychological appraisals: extract measurable, objective data about not just an employee performance but also potential. Can be deployed easily when compared with other performance appraisal methods. 6. Human resource accounting method. Human resource accounting method analyzes an employee's performance through the monetary benefits he or she yields to the company. When an employee's performance is evaluated based on cost accounting methods, factors like unit-wise average, service value, quality, overhead costs, interpersonal relationship, and more are taken into account. Advantages of the human cost accounting method: effectively measure the cost and value that an employee brings to their organization. Helps identify the financial implication that an employee's performance has on the organization bottom line. The future-focused employee performance appraisal method. Choosing the right performance appraisal method is more critical than ever since it reflects what you think of your employees and how much you care about employees' morale. Once you found an ideal performance review method for your needs, the next step is implementing it properly to eliminate critical performance gaps and address pressing issues that impacts ROI.
Lastly, this lesson is all about appraisal interview. First, what is performance appraisal interview? An appraisal interview is a formal discussion between an employee and his/her manager. In appraisal interview, the employers and the employee discuss the performance of the latter. In a nutshell, an appraisal interview gives the employee the chance to defend himself from poor evaluation by manager, and it also gives the manager an opportunity to spell out his reviews. Objective evaluation versus personal biases. Though management theorists like to propound the benefits of objective evaluation, it is a fact in contemporary organizations that an element of personal bias enters the evaluation. This is evident from the studies and surveys done by HR consultants like Hewitt that point to the employees' dissatisfaction with the performance appraisal process as one of the main reasons for leaving the company. To curb the incidence of biases and heuristics playing a role in the appraisal, HR manager typically conduct orientations and training to both the manager and the employees to sensitize them to these dangers that are sometimes inherent in the process. On the other hand, the employees should approach the process without any realistic expectation and expect the manager to agree to whatever they write on the performance evaluation form. Hence, there is a need for both sides in the interview process to approach the same with an open mind and be as objective as possible. However, this is easier said than done, and hence organization expend resources on the making process as transparent and objective as possible. The right and wrong way to approach a performance appraisal interview. The performance appraisal interview must be taken seriously, and both the employee and the manager must set aside time to go through the process. The manager cannot arbitrarily change the time or the venue and must not approach the interview in a haphazard manner. Despite all these injunctions, it is often the case that the manager has to be reminded about the interview and then he or she hurriedly arrange the meeting. This is definitely the wrong way to approach the interview. Further, the manager must make the time to go through the employee's self-evaluation and rate the same objectively. Though there is no right way to conduct the performance appraisal interview, it is incumbent upon the manager to avoid the pitfalls described above. A rule of thumb would be set aside a few days to conduct all the interview with members of his/her team and ensure follow-ups to the process. The follow-up is needed when the employee is not satisfied with the interview discussion and hence requests for additional time to debate the rating. In some cases, the HR manager may need to step in to ensure that the process is concluded to the satisfaction of employee and the manager. Conclusion. Surveys have shown that nearly 70% of the employees who leave organizations cite that the bad rating that they have got as the reason for quitting and often voice their disappointment at the process in the exit interview. Hence, there is a need organization to smoothen the performance appraisal process, and since the performance appraisal interview is the first step, the beginning must be made well. Since the career progression of employees depends on the rating that they get, the whole process must be taken seriously by all the stakeholders.